Back for well, I guess this is a Periscope, right? I guess this is a Periscope. Let me see this for a second. This is the no one's expecting it. No one's expecting me to be back. Well, we're not going to quite title it the same thing, and we're not going to be talking about quite the same things. But I wanted to step back and just have a look, a couple quick messages for you guys, could interact. I just want to let you guys know ahead of time that for obvious reasons, I'm not going to be talking about any of the stuff related to the case. I hope you guys understand that. I hope you can appreciate that. This is, a legal matter, but I'm doing well. I'm doing well, and I feel great. Look, and we have if any of you guys want to help out, no obligation, of course, whatsoever. But if any of you guys want to help out with the legal funds, there's a GoFundMe. I think it just got ready. I'm gonna drop it in a bit. So if you guys want to contribute, that's obviously appreciated. I only want help with the legal funds. Everything else, it's fine. So look, I want to talk about some of this stuff more broadly. Yep, there's a Stedman Legal Defense Fund, and the amount will be probably increased to deal with potential fines and maybe extra legal fees. But at the moment, um, what the amount is for is the amount that I would owe from legal fees at the moment. So, Linwood on the case, right? So, so look, guys, just I will. I'm gonna post it to my Twitter profile in a bit. I just wanted to make sure that it was legitimate. A friend set up for me, but guys, we can't do the Periscope unless we talk about the wine first, right? I was missing all this stuff. I was missing all this stuff. Andrew, I got arrested. By the FBI. So that's what happened. All right, so we have a Reboso del Piave today. So Piave is in the east of Italy. Okay, it's near Friuli, and we didn't do a Reboso before. We didn't do a Reboso before, but I saw my dad had this yesterday, and I was like, "What? Really good, really interesting." This is day 2, so we'll see how it tastes. It's super rich. It's a very look at this. Look at how dark it is. Super deep colored and really like forest fruit, very tarish, almost like molasses, almost. Yeah, I'll wonder about that with the GoFundMe. But the reality is that look, um, I'm how do I put this? I'll be wary about it. I'll be wary about it. But I'm not. Uh, I'm not poking the bear. Let's put it that way. I'm not poking the bear. No point in doing that stuff. Not with my family. Um, I have tried Mexican wine before, and it's not very good, unfortunately. A friend brought it back to me from Mexico, and it was quite bad. So I don't know. Maybe one of you guys can bring me a nice bottle at some point. I'd be happy to try it. But yeah, guys, everything's good on my front. Look, and I want to talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk about some other things too. Talk about some other things too. But I think that a lot of people have been surprised at how well I've sort of dealt with this stuff, right? Now, first off, you guys know that I was prepared for it already, right? You guys know I was prepared for it, so that's important to note. But I want to talk about this from a dimensional standpoint, okay? Because I think it'll be valuable. So most people are in this sort of 3D state, and they're worried about all these things that's going to happen to them, and they're in fear, and they think like, well, what can I do to not have bad things happen to me? um do I need to, what do I need to say, what do I need to do? I'll do anything, please don't put me in a rough situation. And that's how a lot of people operate. Just absolute total fear of anything occurring to them. And then you have 4D, which moves much more into, especially as you move through 4D, it starts to go through like, all right, I'm going to get through this. I think I'm going to get through this, to being like, no, here's the facts. I think I have a good case. Things are going to be good, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of courage, there's a lot of reason, like, we can manage, and staying positive, it's important to stay positive. And if I'm going to be honest with you guys, throughout this entire process, there have been moments, I'm talking a couple seconds, where I'll feel like a 3D pull. But for the most part, it's 4D, right? For the most part, it's in 4D. It's like, hey, you know, no worries, etc. But I would say it's most part to about half the time actually in 5D. And I want to talk to you about this 5D way of looking at these things, because there are people in my life, and I love them. I love them for this. By the way, I have to say that we talked a lot about our differences with family and whatnot. It's been very interesting to see with family and friends that when something like this happens to you, and you have the press obviously create all sorts of ridiculous stories, right? I'm just some pickup artist who lives at my parents' house. It's just hilarious. It's actually hilarious how they it's hilarious how the press spins these things. But the press is the least of my worries. I could care less about the press. They're probably watching this. I don't really care about them at all. I expect them to lie. But what's been amazing and so really rewarding is having just so much support from family members. It really unified the family in a lot of ways, and people who I would not even have expected to really be coming in, right, and being really supportive, and just giving tons and tons of love to my family and everything. So it's been awesome. It's been really awesome to see that, and it was a really good lesson for me as well in just understanding the fact how much the love between people transcends sort of political differences at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, like, whatever your sort of beliefs, there's a deeper love. And I've also noticed, by the way, that a lot of people have been segmented based on their own sort of vibration. So people who are less afraid in general have found themselves, I've found them being much more considerate, much more open, versus people who were more afraid, um, who maybe see the whole situation as a very scary event, and perhaps are more afraid than I am. So my perspective on these kind of things is as like thinking 5D, and I want you guys to think about this because this can happen in your own experiences, right? Deal with clients and whatnot who going through divorces. I was talking to a guy the other day, and his wife cheated on him, and they were going through a divorce, and he was embarrassed, and he's getting all these people who were kind of judging him because his wife cheated, and I was just like, fuck these people. Like most of these people are losers. I mean, I get the same generic comments over and over again from people trying to make fun of me, trying to attack my life and attack who I am. Doesn't mean anything to me at all. I mean, the fact that you have to go out of your way to try to tell someone, you're going to get raped in prison, right? It's kind of it's interesting. It's interesting just to see how a bad event happening to you can be so perceived. Like, people put themselves in that situation and they visualize hell. And so then they expect you to feel the same way that they would feel in the situation. Whereas, look, I obviously would not like to be in the situation I'm in. I mean, you'd have to be stupid to say that you would like this stuff. All that being said, um, you know, this is life, guys. This is life. This is how life works. And everything's a growing experience, but it's more than that. When you get into 5D, and this is the thing, when I was isolated, um, I just kept going back to my heart center and, like, feeling the situation, feeling everything. And when you come at it from your heart, everything's okay. It really doesn't matter. Everything's okay. There's just this sort of understanding. It's like, hey, look, this is a movie. Your life is a movie. Remember what we always talked about? Like, you're watching a movie. Well, you are watching a movie even in general. You're watching a movie. Okay. And your life is this, and you are a player in this. And the reality is that there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. and things are going to play out as they're going to play out. And there's always options to deal with things as stuff is presented. There's always options to deal with it. But the fundamental thing here is, like, I think a lot of people, they draw the, and I think that maybe they're starting to understand because so many of you understands, right? Like, oh, Pat Stedman, this is an example of someone who's just completely humiliating, right? It's a humiliating situation. Pat lost all this money on his bets, and then, he gets arrested, and, don't be like Pat. It's like, cool, you can draw that conclusion. You can talk about judgment calls, etc. But I've always been prepared for every result of my actions. And the reality is that I've learned a lot. And I would even dare say that, I mean, my fundamental sentiment about where things go hasn't changed. I encourage people to not get so bogged down in details. Okay. I think that I've seen some of the recent Simon Parks things, and, I understand some of these arguments, and, the reality is that who knows about these details? Who knows about the details? And that's the big thing to let go, is that we have to let go of details. I think that we can all feel that the world's changing. I think we can all feel it. The world's changing. And there's not really a reason to get bogged down you know, in fear about what's coming. It doesn't feel like anything negative's coming. Okay. I don't have any worry about myself, but the reality is that if things got really bad, and let's say somehow I did end up in prison, that's okay. It's okay. I mean, people are like, are you prepared to accept, responsibility for your actions? Like, I'm prepared for anything. Prepared for anything. Because I understand that wherever I'm supposed to go is where I'm supposed to go. And this is just simply the movie that plays out for my life. So I'm, but I feel very, I feel very good about things. And uh, all I want to talk about, is just that when bad things happen to you, it's very important, first off, on a lower level, to view it not as a victim, and to view it as a learning experience. And that's common self-improvement advice. But I think that if you want to go a step further than that, and you want to say, okay, not only can you handle it, and not only can you learn from it, but actually it's just another thing that happens in your life, and view it from the bird's eye perspective. And it's kind of funny, right? It's kind of funny. You gotta admit, it's kind of funny. Like, my story's kind of funny. You gotta admit it. Like, I find the entire thing, on a certain level, it's amusing. Um, it's certainly not anything to get so serious about. Certainly not anything to get so crazy about. I mean, I'm not saying that the situation isn't serious on a certain level of looking at it. I'm just saying that there's no reason to be afraid of it. Okay, there's no reason to feel bitter about it. It's just like, what an adventure, what an adventure. I'm enjoying the adventure. And because I'm not in resistance to this, I don't really feel that there's anything, I have I have a good lawyer, and I feel very confident about, um, you know, myself, and everything that, what the facts will present. And so we'll see how it goes. But there's a lot of people who get so, I want you to pay attention to them, because they view my situation as like this massive cautionary tale. And I'm not saying that you can't learn things from me, and I think you should learn things from me. I just mean that I don't think that they would survive what's happened to me because of the way that they act. You know, Jack Murphy cried. Jack Murphy, you guys asked me to name him. I'll name him. I'll name him. I mean, this is Jack Murphy is somebody who I defended quite a bit for a while. When he was having all sorts of, stuff about him and his girlfriend, and then when he got fired from his job, um, I defended him quite a bit. And he gloats. He gloats about this. Say, okay, Jack, that's fine. But Jack cried for months about the whole thing. He's a victim. They did this stuff to him. It's so terrible. It's awful. It's so unfair. Oh well, you know, you get a chance to see people during times like these. You get a chance to see people, and some people are really out there just to talk and just to get attention. They want the validation. They want to show off. And guys, I gotta be honest. I really wanted to do this Periscope because I just missed like, we were doing every day. But at the very least, like every week, coming in here, having a glass of wine with you guys, and enjoying the community. Like I missed it. I missed it a lot. I was actually thinking about waiting until Saturday and being like just 10 days of darkness, which actually was no Pat Stedman for 10 days. A 10 days of darkness, no Pat Stedman. So look, everything's well, everything's going excellent. And I think big picture, let's look to March and April, right? Let's look to I love you too, Dex. It was really great talking today. Um, just March and April, really, I still feel that about the spring. I still feel like we're going to see some positive things in the spring, but I just don't know how it's going to unfold. I don't know how it's going to unfold, um, but I feel like it will. I feel like it will. So I think that's all the message I have for you tonight. Obviously, I can't really go into too much stuff. I know this is, you guys are looking forward to, you guys wish this was so much more like the vintage, right? The vintage stuff. The vintage, COVID cabal periscopes where we could go a little crazy here, but we're keeping it low key. I just wanted to touch in with you guys, and I wanted you guys to, you know, it's one thing to do some tweets, but I wanted you guys to really see like everything's fine. And I appreciate, love you all. I do look forward in, the coming weeks and months. I'm gonna, maybe we'll have some stuff come up, and it'll be worthwhile to come back in and chat about some things. I think I'll probably do some random periscopes just to talk about some concepts. Um, just to come in and talk about some concepts and stuff. But yeah, as Curtis is saying, yeah, and you know what, the reality is that we don't need any more. Like it's kind of funny. Did you guys notice how just sort of strange it was, almost mysterious, wasn't it? My last Periscope was like, well, goodbye, question mark. I don't know if we'll talk for a while. It's very it's actually very funny. I was laughing about that to myself. But the reality is that I think that my sort of perception of things is that we're gonna have a bit of a wild month in February. When I say wild, it's not probably the right word. It's not wild. Disorienting, I think, is probably better. And I think that you're going to start to see much more people across the board um, feel the illusion, so to speak. Feel the fact that some of this stuff doesn't really feel real anymore. Um, see the polarity gradually start to diminish. There's always positives, right? There's always positives. Um, the polarity is definitely diminishing right now. I think we can all feel it. I think we're almost shocked by it, how much the polarity is diminishing. And let's allow that to continue to happen, because the less polarity like that, the faster we move towards an ascended state of thinking and feeling. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming months and stuff. I don't know when my trial is. My next status update is in early April, so we'll see how all this stuff corresponds. But I believe as much as ever that positive things are ahead, and while there were big errors made, for instance, trying to associate things in the higher densities with things in the lower densities, right? Trying to assume that because something was going on this energetic trend line, that it would necessarily materialize at this point, at this time, in the lower densities. That's a very interesting thing. And I've been learning a lot about that, because they're two totally separate things. You can totally hijack energy and redirect it, right? Reconfigure it. Well, it's like the way I was trying to create an analogy the other day for my wife with this is that water flows downstream, Okay, water flows downstream, and energy is the water flowing downstream. Now, the water might normally take a path directly downstream and the path of least resistance, but you can dam it up. You can redirect it, you can put stones there. And so the water maybe pools for a bit up. And then when it finally it pours over like a flood, or it, pours on a different slope. And that's the way that you have to look at energy versus effects. All the effects we see are the moments when the water moves from one point in the mountain to another point in the mountain. And things can actually be stalled for a bit because people who are on the mountain trying to redirect that water can do that. But you can't stop the water. You can't just keep the water there forever. You can't do it. It's impossible. It's impossible. And when the water comes down, it will inundate everything beneath it. And there's nothing that can be done about that. So, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, attempts to stop the water from reaching the bottom of the mountain are, in a certain sense, futile. And in some ways, might even hasten the demise of old systems, because then you have a flood on your hands. You don't just simply have a trickle of water that hit its destination, you have a flood. So, anyway, you guys like all this sort of vagueness, but we're talking about energy, and the reality is that this is what's going to happen. And I think that because of the inauguration and everything, we are now in a position where we can let go all these dates and let go all these expectations and focus on really moving towards this higher density, so to speak, way of understanding things, right? See, like we got the troll here. They love it. They love it. They love this stuff. So look, guys, that's about all I have today for you guys. We'll be in touch. I'm gonna have a dating relationship Periscope next week. I get a new phone and computer and everything tomorrow. So finally getting the business, everything reconfigured. But I love you all. Really, I love you all. You guys have been fantastic. And we are gonna have a we're gonna have a GoFundMe. The GoFundMe, I'm gonna probably post it on Twitter right after this. And in the future, we'll get back to some bigger stuff. But I think we have to also appreciate the fact that certain things have a season. And if we ever do restart these things, I think we're gonna know when to restart it. But right now, let's enjoy this hibernation. Let's enjoy the hibernation. Yeah, my phone and computer were taken. So let's enjoy the hibernation for now. And we'll talk soon. I love you guys.